is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I am Brent Jackson.
Brent, today our guest is Alan Chargin with Keller Williams. He's from Capital. Wait, so let's just start off right away. Are you from DC originally?
Who's listening?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. If any clients are listening, yes. Been in DC 35 years.
There you go.
If only agents are listening, then I'm from Syracuse, New York. Been in DC for 10 years.
Right on. Okay. So we're looking at our notes here. You were originally, before you were working in real estate, you were working on Capitol Hill. In what capacity? Let us know something about that.
Yeah, I came to work in Congress to save the world, and quickly found out what a small piece I was in a big machine, and that wasn't really the best fit for me, my personality. So found my way out of there, worked in a restaurant for 2 years, and then found my way to real estate.
What were you doing in Congress? I'm just curious.
I was like the bag guy, and if you watch the show Veep, I was like the bag man. I was her driver, her scheduler, kind of did everything. Really, actually, was quite an enjoyable job. Had a great boss, so I really enjoyed the work itself, but didn't enjoy the philosophy of working 80-hour weeks for 40-hour pay, and also feeling like you couldn't really impact the end result. So it was a money thing and a result and impact thing.
So you're living there on Capitol Hill, you're in DC, and then why real estate? Why'd you choose that?
I bought my first condo on congressional salary, which is pretty cool. I like to tell my clients that story whenever they're nervous they don't make enough money. It's usually because they make 60 or 80K. And I'm like, well, I made 32K when I bought my first condo. And they're like, what? So that's always and that's really where the light bulb went off for me. Was I bought a second condo making just like about 40K, turned the first one into a rental. And then that's when I really knew, like, wow, I've really got to get into this industry and tell people how attainable this is. Maybe not easy, but definitely attainable for many.
A couple questions on that. Where did you buy were you buying in Capitol Hill, or what neighborhood did you buy?
I bought my first condo was in Admo on 19th and Columbia. And then when I moved over to a restaurant in Capitol Hill, bought one on Mass Ave, like Mass and 17th, Southeast, and then turned the Admo one into a rental.
And then as far as the 32K annual salary, were you buying, like, friends, family gave you some money? Did you have one of those like DC?
I had some savings. Yeah, I had some savings actually from college and high school, and was able to just put only about 5% down on a 200K place, and then put 10% down on the place in Cap Hill. But yeah, if you have good credit over 740, I mean, you guys know the drill. If you have good credit, a little bit of money, you can do it.
Did you take advantage of any of those first-time home buying programs through DC? I can't remember.
I did. Yeah, actually, I didn't. No, I didn't. And it's funny. Like, I had good realtors and I got a lot of good guidance, good information, good lender. I felt like everybody was good, but you can always learn more and access more of those opportunities. Ironically, I don't know those programs would have been a good fit in hindsight, because I would have maybe had to live there longer or not been able to rent them out or whatever. So I think it worked out well. But yeah, I didn't take advantage of those personally.
So how many years total in the business now?
I've been licensed since October 1st, 2019. So we're right about my 4-year anniversary this week.
So I'm looking at we love looking at home staff and seeing, like, now who are we talking to for real today? You have a transaction.
We all do love to do that. Love to do that.
You have a lot. You turn a lot of sides.
I do turn a lot of sides. Whenever I get full of myself, though, I just look up the Rob and Brent team, and then I'm like, I could be doing better. So it's good to know.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Yeah. But I was looking at your numbers, as Matt alluded to. I mean, you're 100 plus on the buy side, 60 plus on the list side over the last 2 years. You won Rookie of the Year, $34 million out of the gate. I mean, my first year, I think I did $500,000, which was my own transaction down in Woodbridge, Virginia. You came out of the gate doing $34 million, which is very impressive.
That's a good point. On a relative basis, I'm way above the Rob and Brent team, but on an actual basis, I'm still behind. So I still got to figure out. I got to unlock the secrets of what you guys do to get to your level.
But in the DC market, just, so we're all aware, you can be easily humbled by looking at just about anyone. There's only a few people who are at the tip top, and then it's like you're like, hey, I'm doing pretty well, and all you have to do is just take a couple looks to the side and you see it. Wow.
Yeah, there's that guy David Hayter or something.
Yeah. That's how we call him. Yeah, David Hayter.
David Hayter. He sells about $1 billion a year. So so we also got to catch him.
He's with our firm, but it's Daniel Hyder, but it's a great guy. He's on the show with
I love that you corrected me. I love that you.
Well, I don't, because I'll get slack for that down the road. Peter's with your firm.
Well, also for our listeners who are like, now who the hell are they talking about? If they really actually don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's quite a star. All right, so then walk us through this. So you're starting off in real estate in 2019, in real estate sales. You've obviously had some success buying your own places and converting one into an investment unit. How did you ramp up so quickly to a 35 million in sales and turning this many sites? Because I mean, to be honest, that's just not the norm. I mean, that's kind of amazing. So tell us how you did it.
It is kind of amazing. I think what's kind of amazing about real estate is how opportunistic and how democratic and open it is. And nothing's more open, right, than open houses. So I was just an open house person. Took advantage of a lot of listings in my brokerage, and agents happy to, to receive the assistance of me taking on those weekend hours, and they were able to get traffic in their listing. So it's such a win-win, the open house. And so just right from day one, I was able to do open houses. I think I had a level of credibility about me from being on not being. I was about 30 my first year, so I was a little older than the average rookie, I guess. The average rookie is maybe 22, 23, 24. So I had a few years of professional experience under my belt outside of real estate, and had 3 transactions I've been through. My wife and I also bought a house. So I kind of had been a bit seasoned. And I also was part of a real estate team for about a year, a KW team. I was a non-agent role there. So I did have a bit of a few non-rookie type experiences that when I did my first open house, I think people could really tell that I knew quite a bit about the process, even though I still had so much yet to learn. And we're all still learning today. But yeah, I think the open house is a really great opportunity for agents, for clients also to come in with a very non-threatening environment, and they can just go at their own pace and not have to get pre-qualified yet or whatever until they're ready. So yeah, the open house was something that I get a lot of good success from and made a lot of good connections and still do them now.
Can you walk us through your open house procedure from Sunday, getting ready for the open house, putting the signs up, to all the secret sauce that you would do at an open house that our listeners could be like, oh, that's great. Because, we do open houses as well, but I always tell people I'm doing them to audition for future sellers. I don't want it with a buyer that comes in cold. So I'm not taking names and things like that unless the seller asks me to. But I'd love to hear your secret sauce. If you're getting a lot of leads and converting them to actual deals, like what is your secret sauce there?
Well, if you want the real answer, then I got to come to your seminar first about how to cultivate those sales in the Navy Yard, that Navy Yard development that it seems like there's only one realtor allowed. Is that an HOA policy there? Only Robin
pretty
Brown?
much.
Yeah, it's in the deed.
Okay, got it.
Deed restriction.
It's a deed restriction.
Okay. Well, if you give me the seminar on how to get myself inserted into an HOA as a required listing agent, then I'll tell you how to convert open houses.
For our listeners, there is no deed restriction at Navy Yard. Okay, it's an open market.
You can also call Max Rabin if
That's right. Yeah, I'm available for that listing appointment. Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've given so many seminars on open houses and intend to give many more. I think that it really is. It's like it's almost too simple, and I think I'm sure you guys maybe agree. Like real estate itself is almost too simple at times, but then it's so easy to get in and then so difficult to perfect it. And so the open house, I think, is really just about being genuine. And I think a lot of people in any industry and setting, we overperform, we overdress ourselves, we just over everything because we need to take advantage or maximize or capitalize or whatever. Like just kind of like psych ourselves out a bit. And I think my best thing I do is just show up every Sunday afternoon, and I really am just me. I really don't want to sell you a house. I really do just want to listen and learn what your objectives are and what your timelines are. It's not always appropriate to ask a person you just met to have coffee or, as we call it, a buyer appointment that next morning and try to make it very formulaic. It could be more appropriate to stay in touch over the next 12 months. But I've had people who are really not interested in buying end up giving me a referral that week because they just appreciated the conversation and the education. But they maybe they never even turn into a buyer client, but they're willing to refer me to somebody else. So you really don't know what the conversations will lead to. You just have to be super genuine and also just really willing to share. And I think a little bit intentional too, because some people, they think open houses, they're just there to, I'm a realtor, so I'm required to do open houses. That's what people do. and they go on a Sunday afternoon, 2 hours, 1 hour setup, 1 hour on the way out. Like you have 4 hour commitment. You're taking away from your family, or you could be with other clients or doing leisure, anything you want to do. If you're spending those hours, you really got to be intentional and actually do something with the time. And I can't believe how many agents just sort of kind of show up and kind of hope or expect that people are going to walk in and say, "Hey, nice to meet you, Max. Can you be my realtor? I want to make this offer on this house. And how do I get pre-qualified? Who should I call?" Like people don't come in on their Sunday afternoons and act that way. So it's up to us to really be intentional and show that we are really educated and are a good choice for them. But maybe they don't even know that they need a real estate professional when they walk in the door. And that's our job to be available and to be intentional.
Do you have what are you collecting the data with? Are they writing on a piece of paper, electronic device, or?
Yeah, I've been piece of paper for almost 3 years and just kind of just upgraded to my Google document, my Google sheet this past year. And that's another funny thing. So many agents are more organized or more technically savvy than I am, but I think I'm just the most genuine and the most intentional. So I still have success from this way of meeting people. But yeah, my lead sort of collection devices is not a priority for me or really big deal.
And are you selective with the open house? Like when you were first out of the gate, because I know some agents on our team and throughout our firm, they're very selective. It's got to be this neighborhood or this price or the very first open. They don't want to do the 15th open at an open house in a condo in, 1330 New Hampshire Avenue.
Yeah. Hopefully you don't have any listings there. You don't want to get in trouble.
No, I love the building. I mean, we do it all day long. That's another one of ours.
All the listings are in that building. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, that one and then 37 I Street.
Right.
So yeah, that's such a loaded question because agents do always want like the best open house or the sexiest one or the newest one. I think there's a ton of misnomers that go on there. And I think, yeah, I don't know. We could talk for probably an hour just on this question, but agents always want $1 million listing to hold the open house, not the 100,000. They want the newest one, not the stale one. Like that's always true. But I find that if you do kind of an older one in a good location, you might have a better chance having real conversations with the two people that walk in versus the busy one where you get 40 people, but nobody really has the time to talk to you, or you don't have the time to talk to them because you're trying to greet everybody as they filter in. Those hot, sexy listings, people usually come in pre-approved, ready to make offers, asking about deadlines. They probably don't actually need your real estate services because they're already along in the process. So I think people misunderstand which open house is the right match for what their goals are, if they want to educate people and be an option to work with them in the future. And then neighborhood, sure, you should work in areas you know and love and can talk about openly and educatedly, so you kind of put yourself in a good position to succeed. But so you shouldn't be going out of your neighborhood just because a new listing is going to be a hot one. You still probably shouldn't go somewhere you don't have any confidence. And then I also think you should diversify the options, because even though $1 million Capitol Hill row house is a great sale for any realtor, who needs 10 buyers at any given moment that want the same property? Because that can cause real conflict and headaches for us too. If we've got 3 or 4 buyers that want the same thing and none of the 4 of them are finding it, hard to serve all of them and hard to serve them well. So if I have a lot of clients looking for row houses, I'm actually, even as many houses as I sell a year, I'll still go do a $300,000 condo open house, because that's something that I have no buyers in that bracket at that time. So let me go meet a couple, educate them, maybe be an option to work with them, and then diversify my buyer pool, as it were. And then, like you mentioned, Brent, also go meet some sellers sometimes. If you don't have many listings, then go somewhere and really door knock and really advertise and market your open house and go and give yourself a few chances to meet some seller clients that may want to work with you.
So it's just double reviewing the home snap. It looks like you turn probably close to 70 sides a year over the last couple of years. And it's weighted a little more to the buyer side, meaning you're doing a lot of running for buyers out there. How are you managing that kind of schedule? Because I mean, I still work with plenty of buyers as well, and it can be a slog, and hours. Totally. You have a family, right?
I have 2 kids. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me how you're managing that and scheduling that and making sure that that's as efficient as possible, because that's a lot. Again, there's a lot of buyer sides to turn.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things, they'll sound like jokes, but are half serious. My wife is a superhero. So definitely, like, with the fact that we partner well and have sort of shared goals and shared visions, but then divide and conquer the family responsibilities in a given week is first and foremost. Because without that, I wouldn't be able to work and spend the hours that I do. And then the other half joke, half serious answer is I'm not jaded yet, like you guys. So I'm still only in year 4 and still love the hustle, love the seeing 10, 20, 30 properties with any given person. And maybe 5, 10 years from now, maybe at some point I'm like, oh, this is a lot. But as of now, I still kind of just get a kick out of each and every journey, and no matter how many, like you said, labor hours it takes, I just kind of still really enjoy the ride. So doesn't feel like I'm working 90 hours, even if I do, because it's so fun and still so new.
Personally, for me right now, with some of the buyers I'm working with who are like, it's a little more of distance running, you know, looking at like 6 houses in a row in Petworth or whatever I'm doing. The way I think about it at this stage in my career is it's still the nuts and bolts of what I do. You know, it's still that is the real job. And you have to find a way to enjoy that, because that's really how you got to where you are. And also there's a freedom in business to be able to do something like that, to be out there and really on the street and working like that. It's not for everyone, but to me, I'd rather be doing that with my time. Rather than sitting in an office for X amount of hours every day, like checking in, checking out. I'd much rather be out there and just like feeling it and living it. That's how I look at it. So
totally. I mean, there's some real estate teams that have done the showing agent model at a really high level. And I've heard some of their talks and think to myself, if that's something I'll ever grow into, I think maybe I won't, because I just enjoy the journey. But those teams, when you hear them talk about how they divide the labor of showings versus negotiations and which functions the real estate professional really should be doing or shouldn't be doing, it can be pretty fascinating. And they sure do turn a lot of units and are able to help a lot of families that way too. So tons of different ways to approach our industry.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of like a hybrid. Like, I'm not opposed to going out showing properties, but I also don't like going to show 10 houses in Petworth. I'm thinking, like, is there 10 houses in Petworth to show? It's like, pick the best one. You see it online. The first showing takes place. You can look on Zillow and see what it's worth and all that jazz. But I don't want to go and like tote you around for 3 hours showing you Petworth, Brightwood, Colonial Village, what have you. It's like, no, just let's pick 1 or 2 here. And then for the most part, it's like, I wouldn't mind, staying at the desk, because then I can like dive into the data, find more sellers, handwritten cards.
You gotta do that too.
Yeah,
there's time to do that.
And I love doing that. And it's like, or spend time with people that outside trying to cultivate more business. And then, Rob's great on our team. He's very similar to Alan as far as like, he loves every time he goes into a property, it's the first time he's ever seen it. It's the greatest, the latest property out there. And he loves doing that. So a lot of times I'm like, hey, Rob, why don't you go work with this buyer? Because his enthusiasm will show when he's coming across it could be a studio or it could be a $5 million spread. It's the greatest.
I think my interest is more in the people than the homes. I've definitely learned homes. We all learn homes through doing. And but I think my joy is mostly figuring out the puzzle of every client and what their goals are, what their objectives, what their hurdles are, and how to solve those without taking them out of their comfort zone too far. Like that's what I really get excited about. And the few lenders I work with the most, like, they're really puzzle solvers too. So it's always, every puzzle you get to solve is another. It's really satisfying at the end.
So that's a good segue into, the current market that we're in. It's not as buyer, or it's not as seller friendly as it was 2 years ago. And you're working with a lot of buyers, and the rates have gone through the roof, right? So like, how are you puzzle solving these buyers with the rates, 8%? So kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. I mean, I personally like the hurdles now than versus 2 years ago, because 2 years ago, everybody wanted to buy because it was so smart to do it, right? Oh my God, money's so cheap, but it was so difficult to consummate that purchase, and people got really stressed. And I think anybody that paid 100,000 over asking price 2 years ago, but got that loan, they're probably looking back and saying, I'm glad I did it. But it may have shortened 5 years of their life, just all the stress they went through and all the losses to get an offer accepted. So that was quite a unique experience. Now this, it's almost like people think they'd be crazy to buy. So that's much harder to get people interested and excited and feel like buying matches their objectives long term. But if you meet people, or if you land on something with a client where you identify that is in their best interest, well, then it's actually now quite an enjoyable experience to really compare and contrast properties, maybe negotiate the properties down below where they sold 3 years ago, even pre-COVID boom. People are getting deals on the equity now, so they can feel like they can refinance their mortgage. They actually came out ahead. So there's really kind of cool experiences like that, but it really does challenge you, the real estate person, and you, the buyer, to kind of team up and say, all right, can we look at this in a smart way? We've got the American dream of homeownership that's already baked in. That's a philosophical thing that we all sort of share. But then how can I make this make sense versus the rent that I'm paying? And if you can kind of dive into that with your buyer client, I think it's can be fun and can be a little bit more relaxing even. And you can take a longer time and compare and contrast more, and not have to make as fast decisions as we used to have to make.
Do you have any nuggets that you can share with our listeners about what you're telling the buyers that come to you and say 8% is just too high, I'm going to wait for the rates to come down?
Yeah, I mean, the best way that I've heard it phrased, and I don't want to take credit for coming up with this, but I think it makes total sense, is if you buy with 7 or 8% and it goes down to 5, you can refinance, and you benefited from a less busy market than what I'm sure we're going to experience if it goes back to 5. If it goes to 9 or 10, you're actually probably then happy you got 7 or 8, which is kind of weird. But if it goes to 9 or 10, what happens? So I think there's a hedge. You can look at it both ways, and that's true. If it's at 6, 7, 8, 9, it's always going to be true. If rates go to 9 or 10, and then you're considering being a buyer, well, then, yeah, you better really feel like you're getting an even better deal. It better turn into even more of a buyer's market for buyers to be pulling the trigger. They got to see the $1 million comps and know that they're getting the house for 900, and just believe they're getting that 100K of equity for whenever rates come back down to some middle level.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the easiest thing to explain to people in that way for right now. I mean, you cannot overcome the overwhelming entirety of consumer sentiment based on the market conditions and everything else that's happening in the world, or whatever it is that makes people do what they're doing at any given time. Like, you saw the frenzy of like 2020 through 2022, and that was like the collective mentality of our market and our world in terms of real estate. And we're in another place now. So it's like when the consumer or the customer is coming to you and they're asking you, they're like, we want to look at properties, we're serious about buying. They're going to have to roll with the punches of whatever the financial stuff is out here. We can't change that for them. And it's always in flux. So,
and the biggest challenge we face, I think you guys have seen this too, is if seller believes they have $1 million house, which maybe was once and should quote unquote should be now, but just isn't, because the mortgages are so much higher than they would have been when those houses sold for $1 million 2 years ago. If that seller just isn't willing to negotiate $1, it's going to be really tough for a buyer to bring $1 million for that particular house today. So that house maybe won't sell. So that seller better be serious about what their needs and goals are, because if they don't need to sell, great, even better for them. They're in perfect position. They'll move when they sell, or whatever their plan is. They don't need to lower the price from the million. But to expect the buyer to pay more than 900 for that particular house when their mortgage at 900 is still higher than it was at $1 million 2 years ago is pretty tough too. So I think I've seen a lot of deals get within 25K of each other and not get done because the seller was just like, I can't give my place away. And the buyer is like, I want to buy it from you, but I can't extend myself beyond I already am. So I think that's a tough one for us as professionals, to really help each party see what their goals are and define them. But if said seller really will not sell, or doesn't need to sell, or will consider renting, then they deserve to hold firm on the $1 million. But if they need to sell, I think they need to be honest with themselves about why they need to sell and why their house maybe isn't worth what it quote unquote deserves to be worth, given what their neighbor got 2 years ago. But their needs now are different, and they have to respond to the different market.
That's great insight. And going back to your buyer analogy, I think that's one thing that I lack is it's always like the rate is 8% now. The buyer says we're going to wait till it goes down. You never flip the script and like, what if it's 10% down the road? I never do use that as a comparison. Like it could be 10% next year, it could be 10% 2 years down the road. So
And if I share that, I try to make sure I'm honest and telling them I'm not trying to sell you. Like I never want to sell anybody. That's the beauty of our jobs. We don't have to sell. We just have to advise. And if we advise well enough, then sales will follow. But yeah, they should look at it that way. But then also, what if it goes to 5 and you're waiting for 5?
right.
Well, what do you think happens then? All those really well qualified buyers who are sitting out this current market setting, they're rushing back in. The floodgates open. Now you've got a repeat probably of the 2021 year, but not even with 3% rate, with 5% rate. So why not pay the 8, get the discount on price, hopefully, and then refinance when it's at 5.
And
I think that makes total sense.
Sorry,
What's
I
that?
didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I think that that's exactly why we're experiencing what's happening now, because of what you're saying. It's like if all of a sudden, or let's even say within the next 5-6 months, rates were down at 5.5 again, you're right about that. And the floodgates would reopen. That's why I don't really think that's going to happen. I think that what is happening right now with the rates continuing to go up and treasuries at all-time highs, they're really trying to clamp down on this. They want to make absolutely sure that the economy doesn't all of a sudden like crank back up to 11, because it's just like there was a flood of like ridiculous inflation, and it's true. And so this is how they kind of control this, and it takes a long time. So it's not
properties, but now they've deflated property values in many markets. So they were now 10% or more off the peak. So if they go back to 5, sure, maybe it inflates, but it's like right back to where it was. I don't know. I don't claim to be a macroeconomist, and that's
neither do I. I'm like armchair economist, but
right.
I don't know. They definitely have deflated prices in a lot of the markets, and it's a question as to like what's enough, right? Because you're looking at like double value in a lot of places, triple value over the course of only a few years. We've seen some crazy markups in DC, like renovated house purchased in like 19 or 20 for $1.6 million, then retrades for 2.1 3 years later. That's a lot of actual cash increase for a short amount of time for the same house. So
well, Alan brought up a great point too. You'll get within 25,000 and there's just a stopping point and you can't bridge the gap. And I think that kind of goes to the underlying issue of you've got a great house on the block, little Johnny next door got $1 million. I'm getting $1 million and I'm not budging off of that when your house might be worth 950 or 900 and the buyer's not going up there. So there's a stalemate where the buyer's not going to 975, the seller's not going down off of $1 million. And there's just this gap across the board. And it's all price points, all submarkets we're seeing it. We're trying to have that tough discussion now with our sellers. Like, let's look at pricing in 2019 because it's removed the pandemic bubble and go back to 2019, which to Alan's point is roughly 10% across the board. Could be more, but that's about right.
And every seller, it's all about motivation. What's the seller's reason for selling and need for selling, right? I guess that's because sellers reserve the right to not sell for less than $1 million in that scenario, but only if they have a plan B and don't actually need the equity, just kind of want to move on or whatever. And the buyers are already extending themselves to get to the 950. Hard for the seller too to put themselves in the shoes and realize, wow. I mean, that's actually what I try to show my sellers is like, hey, this is what your mortgage was when you bought. Here's what this buyer is paying to give you this 50K under asking offer. And that can help. That adds a little bit of, I think, clarity for the seller. They still may not change their mind, but at least they can be like, wait, I wouldn't pay that mortgage for my own house. And then if they can acknowledge that, they still don't have to change their course, but at least they can understand the buyer's not insulting them with a 50 or 100K, whatever, under asking price offer, because they just they're at their limit or they're at their comfort, the limit of their comfort zone.
I want to go back to talking about your business. So are you now on a team that you run, or do you have an assistant? I mean, it's a lot of transactions. How are you managing everything?
Yeah, this year has been a transition, or attempted to be a transitional year. I did bring on a buyer's agent and a director of operations. Both have been great. There's been fits and starts in with both, because I'm just such a client people person. Like that's what I really want to be doing at all times. It can be my biggest challenge is how do I lead others, or how do I provide any kind of definition or structure for them to thrive. So I think that's probably my biggest shortcoming this year, is giving them both that structure and giving them the right kind of mentorship. But whenever I've done enough of that, or when they've been proactive, we've had some successful outcomes. So I'm hoping we can wrap up this year and come into next year with this year under our belts and what we've learned and the lessons learned. And really, it just comes down to me, though, being more intentional about wanting to be a leader of a team that I'm still not totally sure is my calling. I've proven that I can really get in the mud with clients and come out with successful outcomes. And I really enjoy that. So I can see myself doing that for 5, 10, 20 more years. As far as leading a team, growing a team, big, whatever, maybe that's just not exactly my passion or my skill set, or both. So I'm still kind of figuring that one out.
How did you go about finding your buyer agent? Was it another agent that was in your office, or was this like a brand new agent?
He was an agent. He was on another team, and we did a really nice transaction together. And we noticed that obviously we all three of us do transactions with lots of agents, and many are pleasant, but then you don't always like click with somebody, just like you feel like you'd really get along. So we just kind of clicked from the first conversation. And then I think that led to like a 3 or 4 month conversation about our business goals. And so that's how we met. And then my director of ops was a referral from another agent. Very fortunate, because I kind of was a little bit dreading that hiring process, like interviewing 10 people, making a job ad. Like none of that's what I'm really wired for. So fairly fortunate that she was recommended by another agent, and we hit it off pretty well right away.
Yeah, that's a lot of business. I mean, I've always been told whether it's 20 transactions or 15 million a year, you need to have a second person by your side. So I mean, if you're doing 35 out of the gate, I mean, you could have had an assistant year one.
For sure.
I should have had one before year 4 for sure.
And I think it's also it's great because as agents, we're greedy in the sense that when is enough, right? Like, what is a person's goal? Is it 50 million, 100 million? And you've got to kind of scale the business to grow vertically. If you want to do 200 million, it's going to be very difficult unless you're in that 10 million plus selling a house, which those don't trade on a regular basis in Washington, DC. So it's like, we know a lot of agents that are totally cool and happy at 5 million a year, 15 million a year. So it's like, you kind of have to figure that out on your own, is like, what's important to you.
Yeah, whenever I give seminars to newer or even more seasoned agents, I try to always focus on that. Set your own goals. It can be tough to be in the office every day and comparing yourself to him or her who's, beating you in sales volume. Maybe they're working 4 times as much. And if so, figure out what your inputs are and what your outputs are, and then at least be fair to yourself. If you're selling 5 million and you want to be 20, but you don't want to work 4 times as hard, well, then maybe you don't want 20. Like, figure out what you actually want. But I think salespeople in general, not just real estate, I think we all, I don't know, probably not the 3 of us, but I think the majority of our profession just grossly mismanages or underestimates or whatever, just doesn't properly value our time or how we use our time. Because so many agents who aren't selling what they want to be selling still don't want to do X task. They're like, oh, I don't want to go do that showing or go meet that, like help that client get qualified, or that's not a good use of my time. And I'm like, man, I use my time in so many questionable ways throughout the week, but it's all in the love of the client journey. That never is it a waste of my time. It's like, so many, and I've some clients who are so nice. They're like, oh, don't come out here. We don't want to waste your time. And I so appreciate when they think that way, but then I have to tell them, no, nothing's a waste of my time. We have no hourly wage. Our wage is results. So it's like, if you don't have the desire to chase results with people, then maybe reset your goals. And I've just continued to enjoy the chasing the result.
Excuse me. I mean, you clearly come into the market as a salesperson at a very interesting time, starting in 2019. Then we had this very robust market. Usually it takes a more experienced agent to be perfectly poised to take advantage of that. And you got a great start at this early part in your business. You clearly have a great head on your shoulders and a great work ethic. But did you have any mentors when you first started who kind of helped you build this ability and this rapport with other buyers, or was it just all natural?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I don't want to make this too much of a KW shout out, but I think it deserves to be a bit of one. I think KW really does value networking and educating its own agents and lifting up others and coming from a surplus mindset. I think both of your brokerages probably do that as well, but I think KW, that's been my experience with KW, is that we've done that at a really high level. So Fulcrum Properties Group was that team I mentioned that I was part of. Even when I left the group to try being an agent on my own, they were super supportive and gave me a lot of support, if, as a non-agent to learn the industry. And then when I was first at KW solo agent, I used to think Joel Nelson Group was like my rival, or when I was at Fulcrum, Joel Nelson Group was the competitor. And quickly, and I'm so competitive by nature that when I came in, I wasn't prepared to be collegial with hundreds of agents. But that was something I was so pleasantly surprised by in my first year, was how much Joel Nelson and Carlos Garcia and David Bediz and Kimber and Bowman Keaty and the coalition group guys like Keith and Ryan and Harrison, just like how giving everybody was. And I was, at the time, I was like, oh, what a sucker. Why is Joel giving me all these, like, all this help? Doesn't he know I'm going to be, taking him down in a couple of years? And it turns out, I still haven't caught him because he's so good at what he does and he provides such a high level of service, and he believes and knows that there's so much business to go around. He was just happy to help me, probably in ways he received help 15, 20 years ago. So it's such a great sort of circle of life to be part of. And that's what's invigorated me to kind of give back to agents, both new and seasoned alike. Now that I've been such a recipient of the education and the giving from KW and the industry at large, it's really exciting to be in a position where people want to hear what you've done and what works for you, and to get that chance to like pay it forward, as it were. So yeah, definitely.
That's amazing. And you've mentioned seminar a few times throughout. If a listener is not affiliated with Keller Williams, can they hear you anywhere outside of Keller Williams platform?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've been really proud to champion an initiative this year, similar to you guys. Like, it's great that you kind of come cross brokerage and do this podcast, and probably this probably educates a lot of folks. We do a top agent mastermind once a month, and I do make a point to invite agents from every brokerage. That's not recruiting. It's just based on like agents who are selling over 10 million a year are just experiencing different challenges than agents who are selling 1 million a year. And all agents are great, and I want to talk to any agent at all times. But, well, sorry, I should edit, not at all times, but I'm always available to talk to anybody about any challenge they're facing. But I've wanted to get agents in the room who are just selling 10, 20 million, 30 million a year and facing different challenges of like how to maintain clients, or which hurdles their clients are facing, and really like iron sharpen iron. So yeah, we do that about once a month. And then KW is pretty open too. So any teachings that we do, Joel or me or Carlos or David or any of us, is pretty much open to anybody.
Are you currently using any of like the larger CRM platforms, and what other tech tools are you finding to be the most helpful for your business?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's where I don't have much advice to offer. If anything, I like to be this example for people that I succeed in spite of my lack of interest in CRM and management and data and social media and all that. And so then I laugh when I see agents come into the business and they're like, I just got my license. Now I got to perfect my CRM and my social media and my podcast. And I'm like, man, I love the ambition and that's great, but like, just go talk to somebody, go talk to 10 somebodies, go talk to 100 people.
Right.
And then get a podcast, or then get a CRM. Like, you're not going to sell any houses or help anybody with any journey without talking to them or being there for them. So go do that. And if you don't know where to do it, go to a coffee shop. I mean, open house makes more sense than coffee shop, but or call everybody do any of that stuff. And I think that's where I go back to what I said earlier. Our industry can be simple if we just keep it simple. Like, to quote The Office, like, keep it simple, stupid, right? Like, it can be overly simple. And occasionally we don't want to admit to ourselves how simple it is, because we want to feel like it's such a craft that we practice, and it must be harder than this, just making phone calls. But really, it's just intentionality about talking to people. And so I think that I'm so passionate about that. I've succeeded in spite of the lack of a true CRM committed strategy. And if you ask any of my clients, they probably would be like, yeah, I would have thought he has a CRM because he texts me all the time and is always checking in on what I did this and how my kid's soccer game was and stuff like that. But that's kind of just me being me, to be honest. So perhaps that's another opportunity for growth for me would be, and that's where my assistant, if she's listening, can come in and make me hold myself to some of those growth opportunities, like the CRM and more marketing and all that stuff. That'll be my next chapter, perhaps.
I mean, that's a great segue into marketing. Are you doing any marketing, like flyers, magazine ads? I mean, you can get in any of those glossy magazine ads and those big parties through Washingtonian or DC Modern Life. Are you doing anything?
Yeah, the Washingtonian one is really a trigger for me, to be honest. And the Washingtonian
trigger, bad trigger.
Bad.
Is Trigger ever good? I don't know. The Washingtonian is such a great publication. It is, and people respect it so much. But I just think it's so interesting. They have a top 100. I think what is it, top 100 agents every 1 month a year. I mean, it's not. What does that mean? It's the top because they reach out to 500 to 1,000 agents.
It's the top 100 who are going to pay whatever.
The top 100 who sign up, yeah, and then if you're in the top 100, you feel pretty compelled to pay so you don't get left behind or left out. And then if you're not in the top 100, I'm sure it's pretty exciting as well to get to have that on your social media and blast it out to your clients. So kudos to that. Like, it's a genius plan, that thing they're doing. And if you look in the Washingtonian in the last 4 years, you won't see my name because I'm not a top 100 Washingtonian agent, but in the rankings, like you mentioned earlier, I think I'm number 30 or 40 every year, and probably maybe number in the top 10 of single agents. And that's something I'm proud of. But to long way of answering your question, no, I'm not a strong marketer. My mom is laughing because I have a marketing degree from a New York State school. So I technically should be better at marketing, but my marketing is just like I said earlier, just show up in front of people. That's my marketing. So no,
Washingtonian is definitely not going to be a sponsor of our podcast.
I don't know. Well, he said they're a great publication, so he did.
I said, well, hold on. If they listen to the whole thing, they'll hear I complimented them on how good of marketers they are.
They know what they're doing.
You give such great opportunities to agents. I dream of a world where the top 100 practitioners of a craft are just featured without pay because they just truly are the top 100 in some metric. But
it makes you wonder about the other industries, right? Like, I chose the dentist because the magazine said they were the best, and I'm like, are they really the best? I mean, it's a great dentist. I love my dentist, but I'm like, did they pay to be in there, or are they really the best?
Who knows? My clients, it works. I have so many clients that text me that I'm not in the Washingtonian. That if anything, if Washingtonian wants me to, they don't care because they get their top 100 every year. But if they want me in the 100, all they have to do is just send a Washingtonian magazine to all my clients. And if I get texted by another client that I'm not in there, that's my that'll be my trigger to just freaking do it, because I'm like, I'm sick of this.
I just really quickly on that. I'm competing for a listing right now, which is actually giving me nightmares, but that's another story. That's another day. And one of their questions on their second round of emails to me was, have you recently received any awards? And I was like, oh, what is an award for a realtor, right? And so I wrote back, I said, listen, in years past, I have paid for top producer, top this. I said, I don't want to allocate my marketing funds for that right now. We're more interested in creating great looking media and getting that looking better and having better paid staff, and why drop another 5 to 10 grand on top agent when every other agent is paying for that. And it's you can't tell who's who cares. That's straight up what I said, That's
and that's hopefully that shows your genuineness to them and your commitment to their part of this journey and not your part of this journey. And hopefully they hire you. But
well, if you were the seller, I know you would, at least today. So
we'll have to stay tuned for that. And they might come back later and be like, oh, they will.
I don't think I would. You'd be my fourth choice behind myself, Joel, and Brett. So
all right. Wow. That's okay.
Well, I tried hiring Joel to sell I tried hiring Joel to sell my personal home, and he advised me, probably rightfully, to sell it myself. So
there you go. Well, absolutely. Cool. Wait, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just have another question here as we're diving into the marketing. Are you guys doing a client party, a client appreciation? Have you done one? Will you do one?
I've done them sporadically. Yeah. Again, not in as organized a way as I think I've some of my real estate colleagues I've admired that they do. Not as organized, but just kind of, we're hosters or hosts, my wife and I. So we just kind of have clients over whenever we open our doors. It's open to any client. So I've done that unintentionally, but it's been pretty effective. But yeah, continue to do that, and probably want to grow that in an organized way too.
So you're on Zoom with us today. Where are you right now?
I am in Plymouth, England. I'm in England for 8 days, seeing 3 football, quote unquote, soccer matches. So yeah, checking out.
What's going on there? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, just really passionate football fan. I support Tottenham Hotspur, so I got to see Tottenham, Liverpool in London a couple of days ago, and now I'm in a smaller town, Plymouth, because there was an investment opportunity to be part of a second division team here at Plymouth Argyle. And
Okay.
so this is my second year involved in the club and first time in the city. So just kind of taking in the sights here, taking in a couple matches, meeting the staff, and seeing, which club I'm invested in.
I had no idea where you were, but I'm a huge Premier League fan as well. I'm a Manchester City supporter. Sorry. And
Wow.
yeah, wow.
Didn't Plymouth just
why not root for like the Death Star, right?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've been a fan for approximately about 7 to 9 years, right? So I'm sure
for approximately 1 year. Okay, all right.
Yeah, well, 1 year. Okay, well, you really know how to pick them. You chose number one.
because I'm assuming we're probably like dancing around each other, but we're in the similar investment circles. Because I had friends that were into Plymouth, and they were telling me they went from like whatever the bottom tier, and I think they got promoted to the Premier League.
Yeah, we were in League One our first year involved last year, and we came in first. So we're now in the championship, which is the second tier.
Yeah.
And is that the same group that's in the Tel Aviv team?
Ironically, not. There's some separation there. I don't think everybody's involved in the same in that one. But yeah, I think that's
Same
right.
group. Yeah, interesting.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us while you're on your trip as well, too. That was really fantastic of you to take the time, and really enjoyed meeting you and talking to you here. I love your personality. You're very straightforward, no BS. Like I clearly see, like, I know there are buyers and customers and consumers, especially in DC, who really appreciate that. That's why I know you're successful.
Well, people in DC, everyone's time is valuable. Everybody does something interesting and has a really, has endeavors that they're focused on. So I think we need to make sure we value their time and help them reach their goals, not as quickly as possible, but hopefully as efficiently and effectively as possible.
No doubt. Brent has some rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, how are we doing on time? This is my first.
We're good. This has been a very impactful episode.
Yes.
Very, very straightforward, very concise, packed full of energy.
Yeah, yeah. If any sellers are listening out there, these are how my listing presentations go too. Just it's quick and to the point, very, very, very impactful.
On a Zoom while you're with your other investors in Plymouth, England. Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's none of the fluff. Like, oh, I love little Johnny. Look at that kitty cat over there. Yeah. It's so great. It's like
I do think you need to. Every human appreciates a little fluff. Like back to my open house reference earlier. Fluff is meaningful too. Some people really just want to work with somebody they like. I fancy myself someone that's likable, but also knows my stuff. But if someone doesn't like you, it's harder for them to work with you as well. So there's always a time and place for a little bit of fluff.
So, yeah, I don't do the fluff too often. Like I can't have someone walk into an open house. I'm like, God, I love those shoes. Look at that jacket. I love your bag. Like that's not me. But I know there's agents that'll kind of.
Yeah, you already admitted you barely want to know their name. You're just like, are you buying this listing?
All right.
I have to sell it. I'm selling it today. So is it you or not?
All right, come on. You're wasting my time here.
Can you please move out of the way? Because I can see somebody behind you that looks maybe like they want to buy this house.
Right.
Here's Brent. Here's Rob's card. Call him if you want to talk about other stuff, but I'm focused on this house today.
Yeah, Brent's very yeah, right. I know. This is my co-host right here. I got it.
So 5 easy questions. This is going to be the day before Halloween. So a lot of these are Halloween themed. What's been your best adult Halloween costume?
My wife and I wore Mike and 11 from Stranger Things a few years ago. That was our best one as adults.
Mike and 11. Very good. I could see it.
Do you watch that show?
Yeah. Okay. I think it's coming back out soon.
It's been kind of weird. It really, like, season 1 was such a cult phenomenon. And then after season 1, it just kind of lost it was a pandemic thing too, I think. Like people just like loved it, but then kind of lost its charm after the next couple seasons.
Yeah.
Favorite Halloween candy?
Oh man, I'm going to give you a funny answer to this. My favorite Halloween candy is Kit Kat and Reese's and Milky Way every day of the year from Chris Cox's office. I make a point whenever I'm near Chris Cox's First Savings office, I always stop by to get his free candy. So I actually trick or treat like every week of the year.
Wow, that's dangerous. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't do that.
No matter how much money you make in life, I think free candy and free coffee will always be really exciting. So yeah, if I'm ever within a block of Chris's for Eastern Market office, I'm stopping in for candy.
All right.
I don't say trick or treat though. Maybe I actually should start saying that when I walk in.
Yeah, especially in Halloween, month of October.
If any buyers are listening, we also occasionally discuss loans and home purchases.
What superhero would you be?
This is a ripoff answer, but I really love it. I forget, I heard this like 10 years ago. Batman, because Batman is such a problem solver that he's not one of the superheroes, maybe one of the only ones that didn't just sort of like end up with the special gifts from some kind of circumstance, but he willed his way to superhero status, as it were. So
yeah,
Batman,
human.
Yeah.
He's a super human. Yeah, right. I love that. Whereas Superman, he woke up somewhere and he had all these gifts. I mean, that's awesome too.
Yeah. Spider-Man, he got bit by a spider.
Yeah, but that's circumstantial.
It's right.
Same.
Bruce Wayne it is. Who would play you in a movie?
I would love to say Leo, but I just don't. I think he's a little too good looking. So I'm going to say Matt Damon, because he's so dynamic. But I wish it was Leo. I hope Martin Scorsese would direct the movie about my life. He would try to get Leo, and Leo would respectfully pass, and Matt Damon would be available and do it.
Very good. Do you believe in ghosts?
No.
That's it for me.
That's an interesting group of questions you have today. Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't.
I guess is this? I'm assuming this one's airing around Halloween. So
it's
you're
coming out one day before Halloween, so
right.
it's actually coming. Okay. It's dropping tomorrow.
In the movie about my life, played where Matt Damon is playing me, it'll be the story of whether ghosts are real and me grappling with that reality.
It's a kid's movie, and there will be ghosts, and you're a realtor, and you're in a house, and there are ghosts in the house. Now I got it. It's not
I think
really
Disney already has that. I think it's called whatever. Disney just released that.
They have a realtor.
Yeah, I think the guy's selling real estate. It's like the one with Eddie Murphy. What is it? It's the haunted house, haunted mansion.
Wait, there's a real estate angle to that? He's trying to sell the mansion?
I think he's trying to sell the mansion. It's like,
oh, that's awesome. My kids and I haven't watched that one yet, but if that's about selling him the haunted mansion, I mean, I can get into that.
Like she brings him in. It's like Danny DeVito.
Good call. We'll watch that.
We should plug a movie. Actually, there's an underappreciated movie. It's called Halloween Tree. It's narrated by Ray Bradbury. It was a Ray Bradbury short story. Such a good movie, and it's not that scary. Maybe for a 3-4-year-old, a little scary, but it's actually quite a good watch. It's like a short 60 or 70-minute movie.
Mm-hmm.
My mom also will appreciate this because we love watching that together. And I've been watching that movie every Halloween since I was like 4 years old.
Check it out.
That's better than what I recommended. I had little guy watch Blair Witch Project, and I got screamed at by the wife. Yes,
a little young for that. Yeah. That's one of the scariest movies I've ever seen.
Well, Max, Max, you weren't going to 3-star Michelin restaurants when you were 6. So at some point, when do you watch the Blair Witch Project? For me, I would say after your first 3-star Michelin experience, which for him has already happened.
Yeah. I'm having some introspection now. I really didn't get a lot when I was a kid. So yeah, I guess you're right.
But that could explain why you're so successful. Well, after we don't know why Brent is, but
yes, I won't go camping.
No, I mean, that's funny though. Brent, you did not live a childhood like that. This is funny that
I'm a complete opposite. That's what we were talking about before the show. I went to see Michael Jordan growing up, and it's the Hornets versus the Bulls. I was in the third deck, barely could see it down on the floor. Little guy goes and he's like shooting ball with LeBron James or high-fiving Damian Lillard. Like it's just,
and he's your son was like fully decked out in like an old school Lakers uniform.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, he probably doesn't even wear uniforms because they're not autographed. He's like, Dad, get this out of my face.
Yeah.
But to be fair, isn't that the charm of parenting? Is like we all got inspirations and opportunities from our parents, and then you want to give your kids even more than you got, and keep the ball rolling that way. My wife and I constantly grapple with how do we give our kids opportunity, but not spoil them and
spoil the crap out of them. Yeah.
I think we're all. Yeah, I think Brent. Sounds like Brent's son is lost, but. He's a good kid. I've met him a couple of times. He's a sharp kid, but
thank you.
Yeah, I think it's hard to get that balance right.
But Alan, we've been talking about parenting a bit, Brent and myself, and then we a little bit on the podcast with some other guests. It's like I think we could. I think anyone with kids could have us like a parenting podcast very easily. There's endless conversations about this kind of stuff, and that stuff is really popular. Those podcasts do really well.
I think Realtor, a parenting podcast for realtors would hit too, because there's so many. How many realtors are there in the U.S.? 2 million?
Too many.
Yeah.
Too many. Yeah.
A lot.
Well, it is frustrating how low our barrier to entry is, but then how hard the industry is to master. No so that there's so many that don't know what they got into, and maybe it isn't the right fit for them, but they just don't know that yet. But real estate parenting is a tough combo at times. Do you guys listen to the Bill Simmons podcast? He's I think he's probably my favorite podcaster.
A little bit. Because because Colin Cowherd mentions it.
I used to listen to, or I used to read Bill Simmons all the time, and then when he got like much more famous and on ESPN and stuff,
he doesn't write anymore. He jokes that his fingers don't work anymore. He's like, I just podcast.
Writing was the best, but that was also in a different era before all of this like intense media, Instagram, everything's like in your face all the time. It was like you actually would read a column and get a big kick.
Top realtors had podcasts, you mean, like before this era that we're in? Yeah.
Right.
So, but Bill Simmons and Jimmy, his best friend is Cousin Sal. You guys know him? He's like Jimmy.
Cousin Sal, yeah.
What's Jimmy's last name? It's Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's cousin Sal. Yeah. So Bill and Cousin Sal do a parent corner at the end of their weekly NFL podcasts. I don't even like the NFL anymore, to be honest, but I listen to their podcast just for the entertainment of it. And then they have like a 10-minute parent corner at the end.
Good to know.
It is hilarious. You can actually, I think they put out podcasts once in a while of all their parent corners stitched together. It is such a good listen.
Thank you for giving me that gift. I will totally listen to that.
If you Google parent corner Bill Simmons, it makes you, if you have kids, it makes you feel like you're doing a pretty good job, because the stories that Sal shares is like, wow, how did your sons get in that kind of situation? Like, I thought I was screwed as a parent, but it sounds like I'm keeping the train on the tracks.
That's not a bad idea for us. I'm just thinking, last week we had back to school week, and I got barred from going because last year I totally like zoned out for the 4th grade, and like I was talking to a potential client. So the whole hour I was there, like, we're talking about real estate, ended up buying and selling something. I get home, my wife went to kindergarten. I was in 4th grade, and she gives me a whole dissertation. Like, this is what we learned. This is what they're doing this year in school. What did you do? And I'm like, they're putting the book back in the cubby. Then they have some playtime. Then they go out for lunch. And she's like, did you even pay attention? I'm like, no, I was talking to somebody about real estate. So this year she's like, you are not going to back to school night.
That was a good plug though, for how good a realtor you are. I caught that. This is, we can always self-deprecate about our parenting liabilities, because it's all in the name of being an even better real estate professional for our clients.
All you got to say is real estate. And I was like, phew.
Yeah.
Alan, thanks again for taking the time to come on here, and really great to meet you, and look forward to seeing you out there, man.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.